Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Italia Pass Ready for Rome webinar. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I'm the community manager at Italia Pass, which is an online community for travelers to Italy. And I'm joined today by my colleague Sofia Bragaglia, and she is an Italy experience specialist here with Italia Pass. I've lived in Italy for over 20 years. I live in Rome, and Sophia is from Italy. So between the both of us, we have lots of experience here in Italy, and we're going to share some information with you today and some tips so that you can have a wonderful vacation in Italy, and especially some local tips for your travels here in Rome. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, I wanted to go into just very briefly what is Italia Pass, because I think most of you are probably here because you purchased a train ticket with Italia Rail. So Italia Rail is part of a family of brands. We also have a tour company called Italia Tours, rental cars with Italia Drive, and also Italia Hotels. And so these brands have been working with millions of tourists exploring Italy since 1987. And our CEO decided that he wanted to try to find a way to help integrate all of these brands and bring the customers the best trip to Italy ever. And so that's how Italia Pass was created. So it's actually in addition to the community that I manage, Italia Pass is a membership benefits program. So it costs $149 and you get over $650 in value if you actually buy the pass and become a member. So as we go along today, we'll be giving you also a little bit of information about the Italia Pass membership program in case that's something that might enhance your Italy vacation. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, we'll start out with arrival at FCO. FCO is the Fiumicino Airport, and I will talk a little bit about how you can get into the city. Actually, Sophia will talk a little bit about how you get into the city from the airport. And we'll also talk about the Italia Pass Lounge at Rome's Termini train station. I will be talking about public transport, how to get around Rome, and also restaurants and how to avoid some of the most common tourist traps you'll run into here in Rome. We'll also give you some information about how you can get complimentary access to some of the most famous sites and also how you can get $100 off of an Italia Tours experience. Then I'll come back towards the end with a couple of my favorite local tips. And at the very end of our presentation, which will be about a half an hour, we'll come in with a live Q&A at the end. It'll be a chat-based Q&A, so you'll use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. You can type in your question, and we'll answer those questions live. And if we don't get to your question in the 15 minutes that we have, don't worry, because we have a record of all the questions that get typed in, and we will answer anything we don't get to. We'll answer that offline and post it in the community. And you'll get an email with links to all of these things. And also a recording of today's webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to Sophia to talk to us about how to get into the city from the airport.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shelley, and thank you again to everyone for joining us today. So yeah, let's get started. Here you have the arrival at FCO. As Shelley mentioned, that's one of the main airports, if not the main airport in Rome. And you'll have a few options from here to get to the center of Rome. So as you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal. The first option that you'll have will be by train, of course. So you'll want to reach, if you travel by train, you will go to Roma Termini most of the time. That's the main train station in Rome. And there are the type of train that goes there is called Leonardo Express, which is a direct train which you can find on Italia Rail. It's an express train, as the name indicates, and it's about $16 on Italia Rail. Whereas there's another type of train that still goes into Rome, but goes to smaller stations. They're just regional trains that don't really have a specific name like the Leonardo one. And they go to Trastevere and Ostiense, which again are smaller stations. They're $10 on Italia Rail, and they're all considered regional trains. So really, you can get any of these depending on where you want to go in the city. Termini is usually the main option just because it's the most central station, and it's also the one where you can get trains to other cities. So if you have a high-speed train to Florence, Venice, or Naples, that's where you'll want to go. We generally get a lot of questions about whether or not you should book your tickets in advance before your arrival, and I do recommend that. I do recommend booking in advance, especially if you're traveling during high season, which would be now. Um, High season tends to go all the way to October, and during this time, the queues can get very long. The servers can get overwhelmed for the booking system. So I would make sure you secure a space at the best departure time for you. However, the Leonardo Express tickets are very time specific. I believe they only allow for maybe 90 minutes for delays. So it's important that you get a time that work. I would recommend booking 7.5 hour, maybe 2 hours after your landing. And definitely no bookings for trains out of Roma Termini, the train station that I mentioned before in Rome, within 3 hours of your plane arrival. This is for, delays, luggage issues, any unforeseen events that you might run into at the airport. Just you might want to have a good window of time to make it to the main train station. The train station is also kind of big, Termini, so it's just better to have an extra 20 minutes if you can, just to find your way around, find your platform and all of that. So yeah, that's it for trains. Other options include taxis that you can take outside the terminal. They have a fixed rate of 55 euros. Or there's also shuttle buses or private transfers, which you can book with us. They'll take you straight to your accommodation in Rome, or if you need to go to the train station or somewhere else, wherever you want to go, we can take you. And you can book them online on the Italia Tours website, or if you want to reach out to us directly, we would be happy to set one up for you. Now, should I rent a car? This is a question that comes up a lot. And there's no universal answer, but I will try to give you some pointers. I would say the general rule is if you know that you're going to be exploring some of the more remote areas of Italy, let's say the countryside in Tuscany or the Amalfi Coast, for example, then renting a car is a great option. This is because public transport is a bit more, there's not as much service outside the main cities, let's say. And some areas are just very, very remote, let's say for vineyards and that kind of stuff. It can be really hard to get there if you don't have a car. But if you're planning on just visiting the main cities, so let's say Florence, Venice, Rome, whichever, I would not recommend booking a car or renting a car just because the best way to navigate in between these cities is by train. There's high-speed trains that connect most, if not all, major cities in Italy. And once you're inside the city, there's these very infamous traffic rules that even Italians tend to struggle with when it comes to driving around in traffic. So it can get tricky. You might need a permit to enter certain areas, park in certain areas. So again, I just would not recommend it if you're planning on staying inside the city walls or the city centers. Regardless, if you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on our platform Italia Drive, and our members benefit from a $10 discount, which you can redeem after booking by contacting us. And now another perk of being a member is the access to our Italia Pass lounge. This is a lounge that's located inside the Rome Termini station, the central one that I mentioned before. And it's a great place to hang out if you have some free time, let's say before boarding a train, or if you're waiting for your hotel check-in time. You're welcome to come and visit us and relax. We have free Wi-Fi, espresso, refreshments. We also offer free luggage storage for carry-ons or larger bags. So you can just stop and leave your bags with us if you want. The only thing that we ask is that you book your visit in advance, and that if you do leave some bags with us, that you come to collect us during opening hours, which of course, we have lovely lounge hosts that will help you through the process. And if you have any questions regarding your trip or regarding your visit in Rome, they will be happy to help you. So yeah, all you need to do is book it through the emails that you receive, and we'll be happy to have you. And now I'll hand it over to Shelley for some information on public transport within the city.
Okay, thanks. So, public transport in Rome. Now, Rome is a very walkable city, so you can get around easily by walking. The only thing is that now in high season, in the height of summer, it's also extremely hot. So, if you don't want to go long distances walking, especially in the hottest hours of the day, public transport will get you there a little bit faster. I don't know how much cooler it will get you. Not all the buses are air conditioned, but you'll have a very local experience at any rate. The public transport company is called ATAC, and we have three different types of transport. We have buses, but we also have an underground. We have a subway line that's known as the Metro. That's short for Metropolitana. It's a very easy system to navigate because it only has two lines, A and B, and they only cross at one point. So if you need a change from line A to line B, there's only one place you can do that and transfer, and that is Termini train station, which you've heard us already mention a couple of times. So that makes navigating the system quite easy. And there's some trams as well, but you probably won't really be using the trams. You might use tram number 8. That one's closer to the historic center. But several of the other ones are more on the outskirts of the city center. So you probably won't use those quite as much. The tram 8 is down by Piazza Venezia, so you might run into that one. Now, the tickets are relatively inexpensive compared to other major European cities. They cost €1.50. And the way they work is they're based on a time limit. So they're good for 100 minutes of unlimited transport on any form of public transport from the time that you start your ride. Now, there's one exception to that, and that is you only get one subway ride within that 100-minute period. So let's say that you board the subway, you take the A line, you change, you get on the B line. You can ride the subway for as long as you need to within that 100-minute period. However, once you exit the subway station, you cannot get on the subway again with that same ticket, even if you have more minutes left on your ticket. However, you can still use it to ride the buses and the other public transport in the city. Now, probably the easiest way to get a ticket is for the riding public transport is with the tap and go system. It's available on almost all buses now, and it's available in all the metro stations. So what that means is you're going to use a contactless payment method, so your credit or debit card that has a contactless payment chip, or you can use your smartphone if you use like Apple Pay or a contactless payment method on your smartphone, and you just tap your payment method up against the card reader. It will beep, and then that's your ticket. So if, for example, you're on a bus and an inspector comes on, because by the way, it's kind of like an honor system on the buses here in Rome. The driver doesn't interact with the passengers. You don't buy tickets from the driver. You don't need to be checked by the driver when you board the bus. This is in some other European cities, that's the case. In Rome, it's not. You just get on the bus and they're trusting that you have a ticket, that you're going to get a ticket, they're going to tap in with your contactless payment method. So if an inspector does board the bus to check people's tickets, then you will show them your payment method because that's your ticket. Now, the one thing here is you have to have a separate payment method for every rider. You can't use the same contactless payment card for 3 or 4 different or for multiple people. Each person needs their own payment. So just keep that in mind because each payment counts as an individual ticket. Now, if you don't see a tap and go, or if you just want to have a ticket on hand in case, you can buy tickets throughout the city. A ticket is called a biglietto if you want to try your Italian out. There are ticket machines in the metro stations. You will not find ticket machines at bus stops generally. However, at tabaccheria, which are tobacconist shops, you'll be able to identify those because above the door there's a T, just a square sign with a T. Or newsstands. Newsstands are prevalent throughout the city. Those are places you can buy tickets. You can buy the paper tickets. And the way those work is there's a machine that validates those. So you only need to validate them on the first method of transport that you board. You put the ticket into the machine, it spits it back out, it stamps with the time that you started. So that's how the inspector can tell how much time you have left on your ticket. One bus route I did want to make you aware of for a positive reason and a rather less positive reason is bus route number 64. It's super convenient for visitors because it runs from Termini train station, that main train station we told you about, all the way across the historic center over to the Vatican. So it's a great line if you need to get to some of the major sites. However, the one less positive thing is that because it's such a popular line with tourists, it's also kind of a magnet for pickpockets. Now, I don't want you to be worried about pickpocketing. There's a lot of, I don't know, hype or kind of social media noise that goes around about Rome being a very kind of like not dangerous, but just like very high pickpocket, like you almost can't avoid it. And that's not true at all. I've been here for over 20 years. I have never been pickpocketed once. And it's easy, I believe, to avoid getting pickpocketed because you just have to look like you know where you're going and be aware of your surroundings. So if you're going to ride bus 64, or if you're going to be in some of the popular tourist areas where there's lots of crowds, it's the crowds that are the problem, because when you're in a situation where you're being jostled around, it's really easy for pickpockets to work their trade and not be noticed. So if you put, like, if you have a purse or a bag, you put that across your body, keep your hand on it. Men, with, if you have your wallet, don't put it in your back pocket, keep it like in a front pocket or in like a inner breast pocket of a jacket. Well, you won't be wearing a jacket in the summer, but you know what I mean. You just want to know where your valuables are at all times and look like you know where you're going. Don't be distracted. And you'll be fine. Really, there's plenty of other distracted tourists for the pickpockets to target. And again, Rome is a very safe city. Pickpocketing is, and petty crime is as much of a problem here as it is in other major European cities. So if you just take your precautions, you should have no trouble whatsoever. Next, let's talk a little bit about something super fun, which are going to be the restaurants and eating out, which I hope you're going to really love and enjoy eating Roman food when you're visiting here. So a couple things about restaurants that you may not know. We do tend to eat a little bit later than you may be used to. So for example, in the United States, we tend to eat lunch here starting around 1 or 1:30 and dinner starting around 8 or 8:30. And the reason that I mention this is if you want to eat in a very local restaurant and you show up at like 6, they're probably not going to be open. And this doesn't mean you won't be able to eat anywhere outside of those hours, but if you're going to somewhere really local that's not catering to tourists, just be aware that these are the general eating times where you're going to want to arrange your schedule around that. The reason I put check in the bullet point list here, and in fact, check is il conto if you need to ask for it and want to practice your Italian, is because something that's a little different than you might be used to is that here, the check doesn't come without you asking for it. So for example, in the United States, it might be common for your server to, when they bring your food, say, bring the check as well and say, I'll take that for you when you're ready, just for convenience sake. It's actually the opposite here. The check doesn't come until you ask. And the reason for that is cultural. Eating out is a time to be with your family and friends. And so the wait staff wants to make sure that you don't feel rushed. And so I just don't want you to think that the wait staff isn't being attentive and you're wondering, why aren't they bringing our check? We've finished eating. It's because they don't want you to feel rushed out. So all you have to do is ask and they'll bring it right away. Just know that's a little cultural difference and it's meant to make you feel more comfortable. Tipping. Tipping is a thing we get a lot of questions about. It's very different than, say, the United States because the wait staff here works for a regular salary. They don't work for tips. So tipping is not common. Most of my friends, most locals here, they don't leave tips. It's just not a common practice. If you really like the service and you want to show courtesy, sometimes you might leave €1 per person, something like that, kind of like a courtesy tip, but never anything to the tune of 20%. That would be outrageous. So don't feel, it might feel a little strange, but don't feel like you're being rude if you don't leave a tip. You're actually kind of following the local custom. And they should never like imply that you need to leave a tip because that's not true. So just make sure that you're aware of that, but feel free if you want to show courtesy to leave a smaller kind of a token tip. Oh, same goes with taxis. Sometimes people ask me about that as well. Taxis, you don't need to leave a tip either. If you're paying in cash, although you don't have to because taxis do take cards now, you might want to round up so that the driver doesn't have to make small change. So if it's like 11.56, try to pay 12 so that they don't have to give you small change. On to gelato. I hope that you're going to love and enjoy the gelato here in Rome. Two things to look out for that are a little touristy. If you see overflowing tubs of gelato like in that photo, that's a sure tip off that it's not really authentic, because the typical authentic gelato places, the gelato's not going to be rising above the tub like that. That means they've whipped a lot of air into it to make it look very showy, but it's not super authentic. So avoid that. You're going to see that downtown. And the ones that have that really bright colors, that's artificial. Natural fruit gelato is going to have a pale color because they don't use the artificial coloring. So, and in fact, some of the gelato places, you may not even see the gelato at all. It might just be in like an aluminum, you might just see like aluminum tops, like covers for these tubs. That's also a sign that it's a very authentic place. In terms of restaurants, a couple of touristy things to be aware of. Obviously, if there's pictures on the menu, that's not for locals, because as you can imagine, locals don't need to see pictures of the food that they're eating. They already know what it looks like. So if you see pictures, that's to help tourists understand, which is perfectly fine, but it's not the most local option if that's what you're looking for. Same goes for what I'm calling promoters. In the downtown areas, you're going to see people standing outside of the restaurants who work for the restaurant trying to usher passersby because they're in competition with these other restaurants next door. Those are touristy places, because obviously an authentic local place doesn't need to be outside trying to get people to come in. They have their regulars, and they're already known enough to not have to kind of usher people in. Now, that being said, are you going to get a terrible meal at these places? No, probably not. It'll probably be fairly decent. The thing is that you probably, when in Rome, you're going to want to eat like the Romans do. So if those are some things that you're looking for, like local food, just be aware that those are the more touristy locations. And in my list of references that I'll share with you at the end of the webinar, when I send an email, I will list a couple of restaurants that I like that are local. Next, I'll pass it back to Sophia to talk a little bit about getting into the sites.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah. So now for all the you'll get to see during your stay in Rome. Our Italia Pass members get one spend there. Definitely take advantage of this because free tour, and it's the Colosseum. So definitely check it out. And you'll also get free access or complimentary access to Rome's Pantheon. The Pantheon is a little less known than the Colosseum, but very much worth a visit if you ask me. So again, definitely on the list as far as I'm concerned. As for the rest of the city, we do offer guided tours of other major sites, such as the Vatican, walking tours of the city. The walking tours usually include Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain, of course. And there is actually a tour bundle, let's call it, that allows you to have these three experiences that I've just mentioned. So the Colosseum, the Vatican, and the walking tour all in one. It's called the Rome Tour Pass. It's available on italiatours.com. And it's sort of a bundle if you're planning on staying in Rome for at least 2 full days. It's our special offer, let's say, to see all the highlights in a short amount of time. Regardless, if you choose one of our tours, know that our members get $100 off of their first tour booking and 10% off of any subsequent tours. It's all bookable on italiatours.com. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always email us if you need help booking, or if you would like more information. We're always happy to help. Two things that I should mention though, I would recommend booking these tours in advance. And we often get questions of, okay, how much in advance? There's no golden rule. I would recommend as soon as you know that you're going to be in Rome during a specific week, or as soon as you have some travel dates, try to lock it in, because these tours get sold out really, really quickly, especially the Vatican and the Colosseum. So last minute reservations. You will be traveling, I recommend, reaching out to us and locking in your spot. The second thing that we often get asked about is the dress code for these places. And I would say a general rule of thumb is if you're visiting a church, and especially the Vatican, that's the church. Or even to be fair, any other main basilica, Duomo, even in other cities, you will need to wear clothes that cover your shoulders and knees. Sometimes if you don't have it, they they will give you some little covers, but sometimes they don't. They just turn you away. So make sure that you have that. Um, but that's only for the churches. If you want to go to the Colosseum, you can wear whatever you want. The only rule there is they do not allow large backpacks or strollers, I believe, into the arena. So if you bring something smaller, like a crossbody bag or just a purse or something, we have uh Italy Magazine. Shelley? Okay, thank you. Sorry. I think my internet is lagging a little bit. Apologies for that. Um, yeah, we also wanted to mention a special offer that we have this year where we give you free access to a special Vatican City edition of Italy Magazine. Italy Magazine is one of our partner brands, and it's a magazine for all things Italy. Um, and this specific edition will give you insider tips into visiting iconic landmarks within the Vatican during this year. This year is the Jubilee. So, of course, very special year for the city and for anyone that might celebrate the event. And so we figured this edition might help, first-time visitors get a better idea of what this is all about. Anyone who has been to the past already just get a refresher ahead of their visit.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. The audio was a little bit slow, but I think we managed to hear most of it. So, I'm back now to give you just a couple of local tips that I wanted to share that are kind of fun, and one is very unique to Rome. This first one, you see this water fountain here, that's called a nazzone, plural would be nazzoni. That means big nose, and the reason that it's called that is because of the shape of the spigot. These water fountains are all around the city. And as you can see in the photo, water just runs out of them continuously. It comes from deep underground springs. It comes out pretty cold, which is amazing when it's like right now getting in the high 90s Fahrenheit pretty much every single day. This is a great thing for the summer when you're walking around the city. You don't need to spend money on plastic water bottles. If you stop into our Italia Pass lounge, you will actually get a free reusable water bottle. So you can refill water at any time, and there's hundreds of these around the downtown. In my resources list I'm going to share with you, I'm going to put a link to a smartphone app that the local water utility has developed that actually shows the locations of all the nazzoni in the city so that you can always locate where the next one is wherever you're at. A super local tip, if you don't have a water bottle with you, but you still want to have a drink, obviously you can cup your hands under the flow of the water, but a real local way to drink is if you take your thumb and you plug the water coming out, it will create back pressure into that spigot. And you don't see it in this photo, but there's a tiny hole in the top. So when you create that back pressure, the water's going to spray in a small stream out of that hole, and you can bend down and drink as if it were a regular drinking fountain. The only caution I always tell people is just watch for passersby so that you don't spray them when that comes shooting out, because it makes a pretty big arc. So be ready when it comes out. But that's actually super convenient as well. Another thing here is this photo you see of an aperitivo spread. So aperitivo is a before dinner kind of snack and drink. It's generally around 6:30. That's aperitivo time, kind of like a happy hour. It's a pre-dinner, kind of a cultural thing that we do here. In the photo, you can see on the right, there's an iconic aperitivo drink called Aperol Spritz. However, and that's lightly, it has a light amount of alcohol, but you can also just get any kind of soft drink, or there's some non-alcoholic, like Crodino, it has no alcohol. The point is that you can have a little drink and some snacks before dinner, and it's a time to socialize before dinner. This place in the photo is called Meccanismo. It's in Trastevere. I'll list that for you in the resources. It's a pretty abundant spread. It's 13 euros for the drink and the snacks. It comes out preloaded, that board. You don't really get to pick. It's not like tapas where you get to pick all the different things. They just kind of bring it out, chef's choice. Or you can even just stop into any coffee bar around that time of day, 6:30, and you can even just order a glass of Prosecco. They might give you a little bowl of potato chips or peanuts, but if you just order an aperitivo, they'll know. They'll know that that's what you want. So I would encourage you to try that. It's a nice local custom. So that wraps up the informational part of our webinar. As I mentioned, you're going to get an email from me. If you registered, then you had this link. That means you're on my list. I'm going to send you a follow-up. It's going to include links to the resources I talked about, a Q&A recap of the Q&A we're about to launch into right now. And you'll also get a recording of this webinar. So if you joined late or you want to go back and review something, if we were talking too fast, lots of information, we post it on YouTube so you can go back and review it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see a Q&A icon. You can click Q&A. If you have a question for us live now, feel free to type it in. We will read it out and answer it live. If there's something that occurred to you while we were talking, something last minute questions that you have before your trip about Rome, traveling in Italy. At the moment, there aren't any questions yet. So we'll just wait a little bit here. Oh, and see when I say there's nothing, people go, oh, they're going to leave. We better ask right now. Maybe you guys were typing while I was talking. So we're getting questions fast and furious now. Fantastic. So we'll just start going through these. We've got about 15 minutes. But like I said, don't worry if we don't address them all in 15 minutes. Do type them in, because once you type that in, it saves it for me. And I go back when I do my recap, and if I didn't answer and Sophia and I didn't answer live, I will answer those offline. So you'll have a record of, you'll get your answer one way or the other. All right, so I'll take the first one. It's from Holly, and she's asking, how will the transportation strike affect train travel? We are traveling on a day that we just found out will be a strike day. So this is a good question. People do wonder a lot about the transportation strikes. It's kind of an infamous thing that Italy is known for. I try to tell people don't panic or worry about a train strike. Chances are actually good that the strike may not affect your travel, especially if you have a high-speed train that is one of the guaranteed trains. So some trains are actually guaranteed in the event of a strike. And I will, in the Q&A recap, I will post a link to that list. So if you've already booked a train on that strike day, you can look at this list, and it will, if your train is on that list, you don't need to worry. It's guaranteed. Otherwise, and Sophia, just add in if you have anything after, if there's anything I miss here, but otherwise, if you have a regional train, that might be more chances for it to be delayed or canceled. If you have a high-speed train that you've booked in advance and it is canceled, so not ahead of time, but if you do show up and it is canceled, you can request a refund. And if you've purchased through Italia Rail, our agents will help you to process that refund. Is there anything you would add there that I missed?
I'm thinking that's pretty much it. I would also add, especially for regionals, some routes don't have the high that they do full strikes where nothing is running. So there's a few delays, yeah, but usually you can still get around.
What about,
I can get,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, what about Uber? Uber is currently available in Rome, right?
Yeah.
It tends to be a bit more expensive, I think, than in other, like in North America, for example. But in the city center, it should be available.
Yeah, it has dynamic pricing, so you may see it fluctuate, especially if there's a high demand for Ubers. But yeah, Uber is available in the main Italian cities, so Rome, Milan, Florence, you're gonna find, I believe Naples as well. Erica is asking, what should we wear to dinner in July? Are shorts acceptable for men and women? Also, are reservations required for dinner? So I would say wear pretty much what you want, but it depends, obviously, if you're going to a very elegant restaurant, of course, you're not going to want to wear shorts. Um, but most restaurants don't really have a dress code. I mean, you'll know if it's a restaurant that has a dress code, it's probably going to be in a more elegant, like an elegant hotel restaurant, something like that. Reservations are generally not required. You can usually just walk in. If it's somewhere that's very popular, like somewhere that you've seen online that a lot of tourists go to, check and see on their website or on social media if they accept reservations, and if so, do book. There are some places, like there's this really famous place in Trastevere called Enzo. They don't even take reservations. You just have to show up out front. So I would say if you have a place in mind that you're looking to eat at, just find out in advance kind of what their policy is. But generally speaking, I don't think you would need to book. Or maybe you could stop in like at lunchtime and book for that evening if you're around that area.
How do I pay for a 17-year-old traveling with me on public transportation? I believe
Sorry, your audio
especially, well,
is
all
lagging.
across Italy, but especially in Rome in this case, there's been having hiccups the past couple of days. Not sure why. Can you hear me now? Is it back?
Now it's back. Yeah.
Awesome. I would say, yeah, in order to pay for public transportation, it's the same method as you would have for somebody who's over 18, right? Just either pay
Yeah,
tapped
it's
in.
the exact same. The only thing is, I think maybe, I don't know if this was the part of the question, but it's that tap and go system. If you're gonna use a payment method, you can't use the same card for two people. But otherwise, you would pay for a 17-year-old just like how you would pay for anybody else, for any other traveling companion.
I can take this one too if you want.
Sure.
When taking the train Rome to Florence, you need to get the tickets authorized or registered when you arrive. No, if you book on italiarail.com, you will see the ticket has a QR code on it, which means that the ticket is already validated. That QR code is what the conductor will need in order to verify the ticket. So you can just board with that.
Patrick is asking, do you need to get a taxi in advance at the airport or is there a taxi station? Great question. You just get in line. There's a taxi stand right out in front of the airport. You'll see the line, get in the line, and they just go one by one by one. The taxis keep coming. The one thing I would say is that there are people who will maybe try to offer you a taxi, and they will actually say taxi, even though they're not official taxis. So do avoid those people because those aren't official taxi drivers. They might be licensed private drivers. However, that's probably going to cost more than an official taxi, which we said was the fixed rate is 55. Taxis here are white. They are official. You'll see they have a sign on the door with their license number. So yeah, but you do not have to book in advance. Just get in line and it moves pretty rapidly.
I can take this one. I'm told the first Sunday locations are free to visit. We still need to make an appointment. I believe there's certain museums and attractions specifically that subscribe to the first Sunday free rule. Um, for example, I know for sure the Colosseum does that. I do believe you'll still need the ticket, but for example, tours don't run. So if the ticket, um, probably on the spot. I'm not sure that skip the lines apply for the free days.
Yeah, when I write up the Q&A recap for Steph, who asked this question, I will put links to the locations. There's a page that shows which, because it's the Rome City museums and monuments and cultural sites. So I'll put a link and I will give you information about how a lot of them you can just show up to. Do be aware that because everyone knows they're free, it's super crowded. It's super, super crowded. So it can be hard to get in sometimes. How do you return from the Vatican on bus 64? You just get on. The end of the line is at the Vatican and at Termini, and there's this intermediate stops all the way through. So you can just find any bus 64 bus stop and you can board there. So, okay, you're back. Your screen was frozen for a minute. What are the strike days in August? I'll just take this one. I'll look it up for you, Patrick, and I'll list it on the Q&A recap. A lot of times they don't tell us the strike days too far in advance. Sometimes we might not know until like 5 to 7 days in advance, and sometimes they get called off at the last minute. I wouldn't worry too much about it because of the fact that it's so unpredictable. It's just almost one of those things you can't really control for. And at the same time, it's not something that's going to ruin your vacation necessarily. So, but I will do my best to look up. If there's anything already planned for August, I'll put it. Otherwise, it will just be part of the adventure.
Does the purchase of Rail Aid enable us to use the Termini Lounge, or is that extra? I am not 100% sure what the policy is for Rail Aid. I know there's offers that happen um, seasonally almost, so it tends to change. We can definitely check. And
It does give you access to the Italia Pass Lounge. So if that's what they're talking about, I think that's probably what they're referring to is the
for
Italia Pass Lounge in Termini. So Rail Aid membership does give you access to that. So when you get your welcome email for Rail Aid, you should just have in your email, there should be a link to book. You do, like Sophia mentioned, you do have to book. You can't just show up because they have to be able to control like how many people show up so it's not too overcrowded. But yeah, it's included. You'll be fine there.
It's in October. We will be traveling with 3 children, ages 7, 5, almost 4, and 6 adults. Any suggestions on how to make this a great visit to Rome for all? Uh, I mean, I would say Rome is pretty family friendly for visits. It depends on what you would like your vacation or your visit to look like. But I would say most destinations, must-sees, all the main attractions are very family friendly. So if you want to reach out to us, we do offer trip planning for members. So we can look into that with me or one of the other specialists for sure.
Yeah, and in the past, in some of our past webinars, some of our guests have asked about what are like activities for children or for families, and so I have some of those listed, and I'll include those in the recap of the Q&A. Give you some links to things that might give you some ideas for traveling with children. Holly is asking, can you tell me how they treat food allergies? I think pretty receptive. I think most restaurants, you're going to find they speak a basic amount of English. So if you have a food allergy, you can communicate that to them. It probably wouldn't hurt to just look up the Italian name of whatever foods that you're allergic to, so that in case there's somebody who doesn't understand the English, you can show them on your phone or, write it down. But I think that, they're pretty receptive. Romans are very particular and take a lot of pride in food, so they're not going to want you to have anything that you're allergic to. So just you can communicate that. And they're not great about modifying dishes. Sometimes there's ingredients in a dish that they just can't take out for whatever reason. So that might be the only thing, but definitely you can let them know and see how they can maybe work around that for you. Patrick says, I did not hear the strike information. I will, maybe he meant when Sophia was responding, possibly. I don't remember. I'll put the information about any upcoming strikes and links to our strike information page so that you can read up on that, but nothing too specific to worry about.
Is there
We'll
a
do this
public?
as the last one because it's 15 till the hour. And so all the questions that come after this that have been asked, I will respond to those offline just to let you know. So I'll let Sophia wrap this up, and then don't worry if you've typed and we haven't addressed your question. I'll get to it offline and you'll get the link to that in your email.
Perfect. Yeah, so is there a public schedule for Mass at the St. Peter's Basilica? I believe so.
I
It
can
should
link
be a
to it. Yeah, I think
perfect.
it's probably just on their webpage.
Yeah,
So, and there's several chapels. So when you're talking about mass, it's kind of a big topic because it's like, are you asking about mass with like the Pope or, like an audience, or there's several masses that go on throughout the day, and the St. Peter's is huge and there's side chapels. So I'll put that information in the Q&A recap so that you can kind of navigate your way to what you're looking for. All right. Well, thank you all so much for all of your questions. It's really exciting that everyone's getting ready to go to Rome. And if you have any more questions that you haven't asked here, you can always come over to the community. It's community.italiapass.com. Just come on over. You can ask questions. I'm over there. And if I don't have the answer, I'll ask one of our specialists and they'll help me out to get you the answer. So thanks for joining us and have a wonderful trip in Rome.
thank you everyone. Buon viaggio.